Josh,
Yes?
it was lovely hearing your voice for Haftorah.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very sweet of you to say.
I wasn't watching, but all of a sudden the voice was like, oh, it's Josh. This is so nice.
Yeah.
It's funny that it was recognizable.
Yeah. I love Josh. We've been listening to you for what, two years now? 3 years?
I know, it's like enough already, right? I got to get out of here.
No. You should come back. You should come back to us.
I appreciate that. It's getting sentimental, actually, very emotional, because I'm coming down to the end of my internship here, and it's been such a blessing.
And then you go to Israel, and then you come back.
So yes, Israel. I leave at the end of August, and I'll be there for either one semester or two, and then I'll be back for one more year in LA.
And then you graduate.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then I'll be a rabbi.
Wow, Rabbi JJ.
I like that. I want to go by Rabbi JJ.
Do you know what kind of rabbinical assignment you would like pulpit versus something else?
We're going to hire him. We're going to hire him for PTA.
That would be awesome. I would love that. I do think I want to go the pulpit route.
Do you harmonize?
You know, my voice, even though you complimented it, it's really not good enough to hold down harmonies. So that's a skill I need to work on.
Oh, just because I think that must be what they look for first at Temple Beth Am. You have to harmonize.
I know. The three together are it's just so beautiful.
We didn't used to do the harmonizing. Do you know that? That's new.
Yeah, I could be the contrast that makes you appreciate them more.
Yeah,
that's also valuable on a team.
Are you flying solo today?
Yes, I am flying solo. So we might as well get started. Want to honor everybody's time. Let me pull up the page sheet.
Well.
Okay, so if you are in Lev Shalem, we're going to begin on page 214. If you're in the the Sim Shalom, it's 226, and if you're in Slim Shalom, it's 558. We'll begin with the Ashrei. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yelalucha Sela Ashrei Am Shekacha Lo Ashrei Am Shadonai Elohav Tila LeDavid Aromimcha Eloi HaMelech V'Avarcha Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed B'chol Yom Avarchecha V'Ala Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed Gadol Adonai Olam Me'od V'Ligdulato Ein Cheker Dor L'dor Shabach Masecha Ugvura Techa Yagidu Hadar Kavod Hodecha V'Divrei Niflotecha Asicha Ve'ezuz Nortecha Yomeru Udalatcha Asaprena Zecharavtucha Yabiu V'Tzidchatcha Yeranenu Chanun V'Rachum Adonai Erech Apayim Mugdal Chesed Tov Adonai L'Kol V'Rachamav Al Kol Ma'asav Yoducha Adonai Kol Ma'asecha V'Chasidecha Yevarchucha Kavod Malchutcha Yomeru U'Baratcha Yedaberu Lehodia Livnei Adam Gvurotav U'Kavod Adar Malchuto Malchutcha Malchut Kol Olamim U'Memshaltecha B'chol Dor V'Ador Somech Adonai L'chol Hanoflim V'Zokev L'chol Afufim Einei Chol Elecha Yesaberu Ve'ata Noten Lahem Et Ochlam Be'ito Poteach Et Yadecha U'Masbia L'chol Haratzon Tzadik Adonai B'chol Dorachav V'Chasid B'chol Ma'asav Karov Adonai L'chol Korav L'chol Asher Yikra'u Ve'emet Ritzon Yorav Ya'aseh Ve'et Shavatam Yishma Ve'yoshiyehim Shomer Adonai Kol Ovav Ve'et Kol Yisharim Yashmid Tilad Adonai Yadaber Pi V'Yivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed V'Anachnu Nevarech Yah Me'ata Ve'ad Olam Hallelujah U'Ba'al Tzion Goel U'Shavet Heshem Yaakov B'Neum Adonai. Ve'ata kadosh Yoshev Tilog Yisrael V'Karo Zel Zeh Ve'amahar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech ha'aretz kevodo. V'tisaeni ruach v'shema acharei kol rash gadol, Baruch kavod Adonai mimkomo. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yisrael, Avotenu. Tzidkatcha tzedek le'olam, v'toratcha emet. Baruch hu Eloheinu, shebaranu lichvado. Yiratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu v'le'avotenu. V'yivtechu v'cha yodei shemecha, ki lo azavta dorshecha Adonai, Adonai chapet l'man tzidko, yagdil Torah ve'yadir. We will skip the Hatzi Kaddish and turn now to the Torah. The Torah reading can be found if you are in Slim Shalom on page 311. This is from Parshat Rei. Otherwise, you could find it in the Chumash, Deuteronomy 11:26 is where we're going to begin. We start off with the pronouncement of the blessing and the curse, some more reminders and warnings of when you enter the land, how to behave, how not to behave, a warning against idolatry and following the rituals in the land that you're about to enter, and as well as the 3 pilgrimage festivals. So we begin Deuteronomy 11:26. But I'll start with the blessing over the reading of the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitchanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala, et habracha asher tishmeu el mitzvot Adonai Elohechem, asher anochi mitzaveh etchem hayom, ve'aklala im lo tishmeu el mitzvot Adonai Elohechem, v'sartem min haderech asher anochi mitzaveh etchem hayom, lalechet acharei Elohim acherim asher lo yadatem, v'haya ki yiviecha Adonai Elohecha el haaretz asher ata v'shama l'rishta, v'natataha et habracha al har grizim, v'et haklala al har ebal, halohema be'ever Yarden, acharei derech mevo hashemesh, be'eretz haknani, hayoshev baravam, mul hagilgal, etzel elonei more, ki atem ovrim et hayarden, lavo lareshet et haaretz, asher Adonai Elohechem noten lachem, v'rishtem otah v'shavtem ba. Second aliyah is 11 verse 32. Ushmartem lasot et kol hachukim v'et hamishpatim Asher anochi noten lifnechem hayom. Ele hachukim v'hamishpatim asher tishmerun lasot ba'aretz asher natan Adonai Elohei avotecha lecha l'rishta kol hayamim asher tem chayim al ha'adamah abed ta'abdun et kol ha'mekomot asher abdu sham hagoyim asher atem yoshimotam et Eloheihem al harim haramim ve'al gevaot v'tachat kol etz ra'anan v'nitatzem et mizbechotam v'shibartem et matzevotam ve'asherehem tisrafun ba'esh ufsile Eloheihem tegadeun v'ivadatem et shemam min hamakom hahu lo ta'asun ken l'Adonai Elohechem ki im el hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohechem mikol shivtechem lasum et shemo sham l'shichno tidrashu v'atashama. Third aliyah. This is verse 12:6, chapter 12, verse 6. V'havetem shama olotechem v'zivchechem ve'et masrotechem ve'et trumat yedchem v'nirechem v'nidvotechem uvchorot bekarchem v'tzonchem v'achaltem sham lifnei Adonai Elohechem usmachtem bechol mishlach yedchem atem uvatechem asher berachecha Adonai Elohecha lo tasun kechol asher anachnu osim po hayom ish kol eshar beinav kilovatem adata el hamenucha ve'el hanachala asher Elohecha noten lach v'avartem et hayarden v'shavtem ba'aretz asher Elohechem manchilechem v'heiniach lachem mikol oivechem misaviv v'shavtem betach. As we conclude the Torah service, I want to invite us now to recite any El Male Rachamims if we're currently observing a yard site. I believe Marlise, we can start with you if you're ready. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing, would you like to, I want to, no pressure, but if you'd like to share any memories or thoughts, this is for your mother.
It's for my mother. It's her first yard site. So yeah, I'm just missing her a lot and remembering, thinking of a lot of different memories. She's very talented in a lot of different artistic modalities, including painting, and she did needlepoint and other kinds of things with her hands. And one thing I was just reading from my son's eulogy for her from a year ago, which I was there when this happened, but she she liked to do acupressure, and there was like a stranger at a restaurant who was complaining that he had back pain, and she helped him, to feel better and massaged his hands. And so that was her. She liked to help people.
Wow. That was for a total stranger?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Can you remind me of her Hebrew name so that I can insert it?
So Masi bat Meyer Malka.
Masi bat Yair Malka?
No, Meyer. Meyer.
Meyer. Basi mat. One more time.
Meyer. Meyer.
Meir Malka.
Yes.
Basa bat Meir Malka.
Masi. Right.
Masi bat Meir Malka. El Male Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hamtze Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Bamalot Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim Lenishmat Masa Bat Meir Malka Shalacha le'olama Bigan Eden Tehe menuchata Ana bal harachamim Hashirea beseter Kanafecha le'olamim Utzror bitzror hachayim Et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Is there anybody else who's observing a yard site today? Okay. We will continue on forward. We skip Chatzi Kaddish and go straight into the Amidah, which can be found if you're in Lev Shalem on page 223. If you're in Sim Shalom, 234, and Slim Shalom, 574. We'll have some time now for our own private davening and meditation. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Imru amen. Aleinu can be found on page 231 in Lev Shalem, 248 in Sim Shalom, and 598 in Slim Shalom. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon HaKol, l'tek v'aloseh b'Bereshit. Kakatu b'Toratecha, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz, v'yom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Kadisha Tov, Mourner's Kaddish, is on page 249. If you're in the Sim Shalom, it's on 232 in Lev Shalem or 600. I actually want to invite someone else to lead, and I'll say the amens. Marlise, do you want to say the Mourner's Kaddish for your mom?
Yes, thank you. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yalma divra kirete v'yamlik malchute v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayeda hol beit Yisrael v'agalav v'zman kari v'yamru amen.
Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Ulamei Almaya.
Shmei Rabba Mavarach Leolam Ulamei Almaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit ramam v'yit naseh. V'yit hadar v'yit taleh v'yit talal shemei de kudesha brichu.
Grichu.
Le'olam min kol berchata v'shirata. Tush v'chata v'nechamata. Dami ran be'alma v'yamru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru amen.
Amen. Thank you, Marlise, for leading us. We'll turn now to the text study. If you were at Library Minyan today, I referenced these texts in my drash, but they're such rich texts that I actually wanted to bring them for the text study so I could hear your thoughts on them, and maybe we come to different conclusions or the conversation goes in an entirely different direction. So let's see. I think I don't have host abilities to share screen. So if it's possible to get that working, I'll go ahead and share with you. It was also on the website, so maybe you were able to gain access then. Hector, are you still with us or able to give me screen sharing abilities?
Yes, I'm here, Josh.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that. Not working quite yet, but I'll tell you our first text is Deuteronomy 10, chapter 10, verse 12. This is from Akev, so I wanted to linger in Akev a little bit. If you have a Chumash, you can go ahead and turn to Deuteronomy 10:12. And is somebody there and able to read that verse for us, either English or Hebrew? Feel free to unmute and go ahead.
Sure, I'll read.
Thank you. Thanks, Joanna.
ואתה ישראל, מה אדוני אלוהיך שואל מעמך? כי אם לירא את אדוני אלוהיך, ללכת בכל דרכיו, ולאהבה אותו, ולעבוד את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God demand of you? Only this, to revere the Lord your God, to walk only in his paths, to love him, and to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul.
Great. So Moses is getting the people ready to enter the land. He's giving his series of discourses, and he's reminding them of basically the summation of all that God truly wants from you, right? That we have this whole series of about 1 million, well, we know exactly how many laws, but it's a ton of laws, at least 613. And it can get overwhelming. And so I think something like this is very helpful, where Moses reminds us, okay, at the end of the day, here is almost on one foot what God wants from you. My question for you all is there any significance to the order that it's listed in? Do you think that there is intentionality to the order that it's listed in, and why that might be? And if this is a list of all you need in life, is there anything that's missing from this list? So if you're not able to see it, I'll just repeat the order. It's fear the Lord your God, which is yirah, so fear or awe of God. Lalechet b'chol drachav, to walk in God's ways. Lahava oto, to love God. La'avod, and to serve God. So you have fear, you have walking in God's ways, or observing the mitzvot, you have love, and you have service, serving God. So any takers to respond to that question of, is there something to this order, and is anything missing from the list? Yeah, Larry.
Sure. Well, first of all, my friend Brian Nagin mentions that he thinks that the yirah should be reverence as opposed to fear.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to take us in a completely different direction. And this morning, I was struck in reading the pasuk. Trying to open it there. Okay, so it says, "What does God shoel? What does God ask of you?" And I was immediately struck about the similarity with Micah, and the verse in Micah, which basically asks, "What does God doresh mimcha?" which is a little different than shoel, require of you. But Micah talks about ki'im asot mishpat va'ahavat chesed. So, and then he goes on to say, so that is, it's translated here as to do justice and then to do loving kindness. And then at the end, v'hatznea lechet im Elohecha, and to walk modestly with your Lord. So it's quite a contrast, I think, what we're talking about here, because we're talking about here in Devarim is to follow the mitzvot, which one could say the mitzvot would include those items that Micah is emphasizing, but it's pretty clear it's to follow the mitzvot with all of your heart, whereas Micah is telling us, as I think in other places, Isaiah says the same thing. It's not so much ritual that's important,
right?
We talked about before, maybe even the last time we had this this session, but it's actually doing justice and deeds of loving kindness, which are important. But there is that modesty element which was a main element of your Devar Torah earlier today. So you could connect that part of Micah to what you wanted to what you did say this morning.
A lot of great points there. So when I read this, I also thought of Micah, because it's kind of that summation of what does God want from you, ask of you, or require of you. That's also an interesting investigation, why those different word choices. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God, which seems to suggest more emphasis on how you behave as opposed to punctiliousness with the rituals, which is a theme with some of the prophets, not all of them, but a lot of them. And versus here, which again is a summation of all that matters, but focusing more on mitzvot observance with following God's laws. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. And right, what's missing here, like you said, is that maybe that humility aspect that Minha has, but isn't here necessarily. Joanna, your hand.
So two things. So there are four things listed here. And as I read them, I think the first leads to the second and the third leads to the fourth. Right. So if you have that reverence for God, then you will follow in God's paths. And then once you love God, you will serve God, with full joy. And a couple of thoughts also come to mind that, if we compare our relationship with God a little bit to the parent-child relationship, we're told in one place in Torah to revere your parents, and in another place to love your parents. And really, it is that combination, for the full relationship that transpires. And I had one more thing I wanted to say. There are all these like lovely sayings that, that sort of come from the second part of the verse, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha, become, is very popular. We sing it, worship God in joy. Mitzvah gedola liot b'simcha tamid, that it's a great mitzvah to be in happiness, presumably in the way that we serve God always. And I think it's really interesting, like there are other religions that are very focused sort of on the aesthetic and on the, what you deny yourself. And while we have those moments, we have Yom Kippur, we have those moments, I think the overall message of Judaism is the joy in living a Jewish life.
That's beautiful. So I want to try to synthesize both of your points as we move on to the next text. So what you're saying, last point being focusing on joy, that joy is a big emphasis of Judaism and not necessarily as stressed in other religions necessarily, but that it's a big focus for us to serve God with joy. And your first point, which is that one leads to the other and the other to the next, so that there is this order that if you have one, you'll have the other. That's actually the jumping off point into this next text. And I also then want to circle back to what Larry said about humility, because they combine in a way. And so humility, joy, and humility in life, joy in life, and how one leads to the next. So there's a lot of commentary about why it starts with yirah, with reverence. And just like Joanna's pointing out, the commentators say, if you have that, the rest follow. So this next text, which I won't be able to share, it's still not working technologically, so I apologize for that, but I'll read it off the page, unless maybe I'll ask somebody if they have it in front of them. But this is also picking up on why revere your God is first and what that has to say about the verse. So this is a Hasidic commentary. It can be found in the collection Iterei Torah. Does somebody have it in front of them and is able to read? This is commentary on Deuteronomy 10:12. Marlise, great.
Gary said it.
Gary, thank you.
In English.
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry, but only this to revere. They tell the story that once Rabbi Israel Salanter praised one of his students, Rabbi Smicha Zeisel from Kelm, saying that he was a whole person, Hebrew for Shalem, and a master of noble traits, and reciting about him, all of you is fair, my companion. There is no blemish in you. Another rabbi who heard these words said, perhaps this Rabbi Simcha Zeisel is a perfect tzaddik. But if he had truly devoted himself to Talmud and poskin, legal decisions, legal decisors, he would have made a great one in Israel. Rabbi Israel Santo said to him, the halakha is that when there is before you a big challah that is split in pieces, and a small challah that is whole, we bless on the whole one. Meaning, fulfillment and uprightness is more important than greatness. I think we heard this before.
Yes, I mentioned it today during the drash. But just for a quick summary of this, right? You have a rabbi praising his student with high praise, even invoking the verse from Song of Songs, from Shir Shirim, that there is no blemish in you. You're perfect. Another rabbi says, oh, well, if this student was so great, surely I would have heard of him. He would have been a gadol, a great in the community. And the rabbi's response is, if you have a big challah, and a big challah in front of you that's been ripped into already, and a small challah that's intact, that's full, we bless on the small challah, meaning fullness and uprightness is more important than greatness. So my question for you is, first of all,
Josh?
Yeah, Taibo?
Why is it necessarily fullness and completeness? Why isn't that, I could think of at least two other explanations why the smaller would be better.
Go ahead, what do you have?
I'm not saying this is halachic, but one could be maybe there's some rule that certain ritual objects only have one use.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed, not a Havdalah candle, clearly, but that's one. But the other is that it's not fullness as much as that you have to be able to go from start to finish. I don't know that that's fullness, but that, and the start being, I'm having trouble articulating, but just that there are phases in it. If the other challah has either been used for a blessing or not, either way, if there's such a thing as a challah life cycle, it's more in the middle of its challah life cycle. It's not at the beginning. So I'm not saying either of those apply, but I'm just asking how you know that that's why the smaller.
It's interesting. It's a good question. You're bringing good points. I'm not sure the origin of the halacha. Maybe somebody here does, but I do know that, I think it's probably like hidur mitzvah, making the mitzvah beautiful, and it might be disrespectful to Shabbat to welcome it in.
That makes total sense.
Yeah,
the hidur mitzvah makes total sense.
Yeah, because at the beginning, you're supposed to set aside your best bottle of wine or grape juice for Shabbat. You're supposed to. So if you're blessing Shabbat with the already eaten challah, I think it would be seen as disrespectful. But what I am getting from this is, I think there is this conflict that many of us probably feel of going, like, shooting for the moon with your one life that you have and trying to be as great, quote unquote, as you can be, maybe like conventionally successful or just impactful, to try to really change the world on one hand. And the other, which is, and the danger, of course, of that is it can tear away at you. If you're this big shot, big challah, everyone wants a piece of you. And if you have a big, lofty leadership role or shoot for the moon, it can really take a toll on you, versus a small challah, which, quote unquote, big and small here. But if you live a life that is maybe not as conventionally lofty or impressive, but you are upright and full and you make a difference in your little circle and you're happy. And so one question is ultimately keep in mind throughout, as we're talking about this, can you only have one or the other? Is it a trade-off that you have to make, that you're either this big challah or small challah? But the question I want to ask you first is, which one would you rather be if you did have to choose? Would you rather be the big challah or the small challah?
I think sometimes being the small challah allows for more impactful relationships, right? Like you have more time to spend with the people in that smaller circle. The professor who teaches a seminar gets to know his students much better than the professor who's teaching, the massive lecture in a huge hall to 300.
Right. Absolutely. So Joanna is bringing in breadth versus depth. Right? Maybe if everybody knows your name, you've really achieved breadth, but what you sacrifice maybe is depth there of, being this seminar professor that really gets to know your students and change them deeply for the rest of their lives. Great. So that like Rabbi Israel Salanter, I think you are praising the small challah. And again, these are quote unquote, because you can't measure impact and put a person's entire life in a box like that. But I think it's an interesting thought exercise.
Josh?
Yes, Larry.
So I have a small thing to say, and then Brian has a Mishnah from Pirkei Avot to bring to this discussion too.
Great.
I would comment that if in fact you had the choice between a large whole challah and a small broken challah, you would choose the large whole challah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this is an issue of large versus small, but the emphasis is on the concept of shalem. I'm not going to go any further with that. Brian?
Okay. I think that one can look at this from the standpoint of, say, process, and an individual who strives to greatness as opposed to somebody who doesn't. And
Great.
reminded of something in Pirkei Avot. This is Pirkei Avot 1, verse 13, and referring to Hillel. This was a favorite teaching of his. When you seek fame, you destroy your name. Knowledge not increased is knowledge decreased. One who does not study deserves to die. And
I like the casualness with which you. Yeah.
The beginning of that, I think, is food for thought along these lines. You may seek fame, and that in itself could be a destructive act. It doesn't mean that you should not strive to be the best you can be of who you are, but I think that that's more something internal instead of what I would call process.
Thank you, Brian, for bringing that in, right? So process intention here is what matters. What are your motivations? Is it ego? Is it fame? Or is it impact and trying to be the best you can, right? Aspiration and just trying to be truly the greatest version of yourself that you can be. The one thing I want to add to this is that, to respond to what Larry said, first of all, the idea of brokenness, right? I think we're all broken in our own ways. Shleimut, I don't think that means not broken. I think it means fullness and wholeness. It's, we carry the shattered tablets in the ark with us as we go. That doesn't mean that we're a broken people. It means that we're stronger when we carry our brokenness with us and pursue wholeness. So I think as long as you are looking out for yourself in the ways you need to practice healthy self-care, you can absolutely have both greatness and wholeness. And how brokenness factors in, even with the small challah, in order to make any challah, it undergoes the process of hifrish, right, where you separate a piece of the dough and burn it as a sacrifice. So really, whether you are the big challah or the small challah, no matter what, you are sacrificing a part of yourself, because we have to make sacrifices in life. You can't, quote unquote, have it all. But that doesn't mean that fullness and wholeness is not is not still very much possible. So I want to end here with the final text, because I think it offers an interesting balance to this first one, right? The first one seems to say there is absolute value to the quote unquote small but whole and full life. Greatness does not matter as much as fullness and uprightness. And this final text from the Kedushat Levi, another Hasidic commentary, this is on Noach. Does somebody have it in front of them and is able to read it in English?
If no one else will, I can do it.
Great, thanks, Marlies.
Oh,
Someone else?
never mind.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
fine.
Marlies, why don't you go ahead? Thank you.
Okay. Why didn't Noah pray to avert the decree? Because there is a certain type of tzaddik who serves the Creator, but is meek and worthless in his own eyes, and he thinks from the depths of his heart, who am I to pray that a decree be averted? So he doesn't even pray to avert the decree. And Noah, even though he was righteous and wholehearted, he was tiny and insignificant in his own eyes. He didn't believe in himself that he was a powerful tzaddik, and he could actually avert the decree against the people. On the contrary, he saw himself just like everyone else in his generation. So he told himself, I am no better than anyone else in my generation. So if I'm going to be saved, so too will they. As a result, he did nothing to fight to avert the decree against them.
Great, thank you. So we don't have the time to dissect this text, but I just want to end us with that notion and that balance to that first text, that while there's value in not necessarily, shooting for the moon with fame or quote unquote greatness, that here, the Kedushat Levi is picking up that Noach was so humble in his own eyes that he thought, who am I to try to intercede on behalf of the people to stop God's decree of the flood? And because of that, the world was destroyed. So the danger, I think, of the small yet whole life is that we are all possessed of a divine spark and capable of greatness. We all have that in us. It's what Ryan mentioned about process and trying to be the best version of yourself. And if we settle and think, it's okay that I don't aspire to be the best version of myself, I'm happy in my, who am I to achieve anything great? The result is the flood. Our world has so many problems in it. It needs us to tap into what makes us great if we have a shot of averting the flood. So thank you, everybody, for participating in the text study. I really appreciated all of your insights and everything you brought to it.
Josh?
Yes.
May I have one very quick, different kind of question?
Yes.
I wanted to ask Larry, were you in Library Minyan or were you in the sanctuary?
We were in the Library Minyan, and those of you who missed Josh's Devar Torah missed a truly wonderful, wonderful Devar Torah, which went beyond what he's explained here.
Thank you.
Rabbi Schatz also had a source sheet. Anyway.
Oh, yes. In Beitenu, there was also a text study as well. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for the kind words, Larry. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's continue on with Mariv, which can be found on 264 in Lev Shalom, 281 in Sim Shalom, or 200 in Slim Shalom. V'hurachum yakaper avon v'lo yashlit v'hir bala shiva po v'lo ya'ir kal chamato Adonai Hoshia hamelch yanenu v'yahom korenu Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. El chai v'chayam tamid imloch aleinu l'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hamari v'aravim havat olam beit Yisrael amcha. V'abtachal tasim imenu l'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Yeah. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Malchut Tobratzim Kiblu Alehem Moshe Bnei Yisrael Lachatnu Shira B'Simcha Rabba V'Emru Chulaham Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai Mika Mocha Nedar B'Kodesh Norati Loto Sefeleh Malchutecha Ra'u Banecha B'Kayam Lifnei Moshe Ze'eli Anu Ve'amruhu Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום. ושמור צאתנו אלוהינו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד. ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן. והיה כל העם ויפלו על פניהם. הושיענו אדוני אלוהינו וקבצנו והצילנו מן הגויים. אנחנו אמרנו. ברוך אדוני ביום ברוך אדוני בלילה ברוך אדוני בשוכבנו אדוני בכל מקומנו. יראו עינינו וישמח ליבנו. כי המלכות שלך היא ולמעט תמלוך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו. We skip Chatzi Kaddish once more and turn to the Amidah. This is on page 286 in Sim Shalom, 270 in Lev Shalem, or 210. Say shalom bimroma vuya. Say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imeru amen. Say shalom bimroma vuya. Say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imeru amen. If you're still davening, please continue at your own pace. Otherwise, we will turn to Aleinu, which is on 281 in Lev Shalem, 297 in Sim Shalom, or 696 in Slim Shalom. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, lateit gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu bahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, mishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kakatu b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch leolam ba'ed, v'nemar v'haya Adonai, v'melech al kol haaretz, v'yom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. Mourner's Kaddish, Kadisha Tome, is on 298 in Sim Shalom, otherwise 282 or 698. Marlise, would you be okay with leading us again?
I think the year site's over. I mean,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I apologize. Okay,
but I know that the Nimoys are saying Kaddish still, I believe.
Oh, great. Okay, would you like to lead then? You're muted, the Nimoys. Would you be all right with leading us? Thank you.
Sorry.
No.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
וילמד דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייקון וביומיקון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei
Rabba Mevorach, Olam U'Mei Almaya.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי אלמיה, יתברך ויסתבח ויתפאר ויתרמן ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקדושה
Barichu.
לעילם עם כל ברכתה בשירתה, תוש ברכתה ונקמתה, דאמירן ועלמה ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמעיה וחיים עלינו ויכל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומה והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ויכל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen. Havdalah can be found on 283 in Lev Shalem, 299 in Sim Shalom, or 700. If you have your candles and wine and spices, now would be a good time to get it out. Hinei el Yeshuati, Eftach velo Efchad, Ki yozi vezimrat yad Adonai vayhi li shua ushafta mayim besason mimanei hayeshua Adonai hayeshua alamcha virchatecha sela Adonai tzevaot imanu Miskab lanu Elohei Yaakov Sela Adonai Tzivaot Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach Adonai Hoshia Hamelech Yaneinu V'yom Koreinu La Yehudim Hayta Orah Besimcha v'sason vikar kentiyeh lanu kos Yeshuot esa uv'shem Adonai ekra Yai-na na 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 Yai-na na 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil bein kodesh lechol bein or lechoshech bein Yisrael le'amim bein yom hashvi'i l'shesh yemei hamaseh Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil bein kodesh lechol. Shavua Tov, everybody. I hope everybody has a wonderful, happy, healthy, restful week ahead. And thank you all for being here, for participating.
Thank you very much,
Josh,
Josh.
Josh,
Thank you.
Can I say one thing very quickly?
Yes,
please?
yes, please. You go ahead.
I'm a stranger to everyone here. The reason that I joined is that my wife was a member of TBA's Library Minyan back in the 80s and into 1990. And it was in 1990 that she introduced me, announced our engagement, and then later announced our wedding date. And she's the person who actually really brought me back into Judaism. I had moved away. I had nearly 32 wonderful years with her. She passed away, and the end of her shloshim is coming up. So this is actually the last Shabbat that I'm saying Kaddish Yatom for her.
May her memory be for a blessing.
Thank you, thank you. Her name was Miriam Lapel, and it just seemed so sort of appropriate in a way, closing the loop. And although none of you knew her back then, but you should know that Temple Beth Am and the Library Minyan is, as an institution, is so important. And it was so important to her. It was so important to me, our families, and to many, many others. And I just want to thank everyone. That's all. I wish everyone a Shavua Tov.
Bennett, where are you?
Bennett.
I live in Tucson, Arizona.
Josh,
And
Thank you for
Bennett,
joining us.
Josh, I wish you
Bennett,
all the best.
Bennett, I want to say that well, first of all, my deep condolences to you and Zichronah Livracha to you. I just wanted to tell you that there are people in the Library Minyan who would have known her, because there's folks there who are still there from the very beginning. And so I want to encourage you to perhaps either email and I can tell you, you can tell me your email right now and I'll email you who those folks would be. The other thing is that in the morning minyan, in the daily minyan, some of those people go to the morning minyan, and it's also being done on Zoom. So you could do that as well and mention that. And there will be people there, I'm telling you, who would have remembered her.
All right. Well, here's my email address.
Okay.
Because I'm over 50, I have AOL. The first part is my name, Bennett Blum, BENNETT BLUM, just written as a single word, at AOL.com.
Okay.
And Joshua, I wish you all the best. What school are you getting smicha from?
I'm at Ziegler here in Los Angeles.
You're at Ziegler. Okay. My wife taught there for many years, and she was the director of what used to be called the Cage Curriculum Bank that was based there.
Rabbi Dorf
yeah.
is still.
And I got my smicha from AJR. So
wow, what is her last name? Because I'll look her up.
her
Miriam.
last name Lippel, Lippel.
Lapel.
Okay, I'm gonna look her up.
There it
But
is.
Yes.
Yeah. Rabbi
Yeah.
Zichrono
Dorf-
Livracha, and thank you for being with us and for bringing her memory into this space. And obviously, I wish all the best and shleimut to you. And
Thank you.
thank
Annette,
you for being with us.
when you said Cage Curriculum Bank, was it the national Cage?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Because look, you may or may not know, this year's new Cage was online. It just finished yesterday, but I'm actually a Cage Life member, and so I had my virtual background. I'm putting it up in her memory because I'm someone who actually used the Cage Curriculum Bank
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
a
If
fair amount.
If you used Cage, then you had interaction with Miriam. Yeah, she edited and put out Bikurim, if you remember Bikurim.
Of course, for the name, if not anything else, because Seven
Ab-
Species is one of my things.
Yep. Okay. Well, that was hers for many years. Anyway, again, thank you all so very, very much.
You're
Thank
very
you, Bennett.
welcome. Shavua tov.
May be
Shavua
comforted
tov,
by your
everybody.